Was this the album that changed everything for the Red Hot Chili Peppers? In this video, I will talk about how the band went from tragedy to triumph with just one album that led them on the path, making them international superstars. I will be talking about how they lost two founding members and how their replacements helped lead the band into international superstardom. I'll also talk about the recording process and how this new band lineup took the band's sound in new directions and the controversy that arose with the album cover. The story begins in the early 80s. The Red Hot Chili Peppers just signed to EMI Records and released their self-titled debut album on August 10th, 1984. But the band was not happy with the album's production, so they fired their guitarist and drummer and brought back one of their original bandmates, Hillel Slovak, who had left the band briefly to join a different group called What Is This? After this, they released Freaky Styley that was produced by George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic. 2 years later, they released the Uplift Mofo Party Plan. So on this album, the original drummer, Jack Irons, came back to the band. So this might sound a little confusing, so I'm going to break it down for you again, and I'll give you some visuals. The original lineup of the Red Hot Chili Peppers was Anthony Kiedis, Flea, Hillel Slovak, and Jack Irons. Then Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons leave and form a band called What's This? The Red Hot Chili Peppers recruit drummer Cliff Martinez and guitarist Jack Sherman, who were in a punk band called The Weirdos. They released their first album with this lineup. Guitarist Jack Sherman gets fired and Hillel Slovak comes back to the band. Then they released Freaky Styley. Drummer Cliff Martinez gets fired. Their original member Jack Irons comes back to the band. They released the Uplift Mofo Party Plan. That's in 1987, or the only album with all original band members, if that makes any sense. So hopefully you've been paying attention because things are going to start changing again in a few minutes. So in a sad turn of events, Hillel Slovak dies of a heroin overdose. His death affected the band members in many ways, but one member was distraught. He was Jack Irons, so he decided to quit the band. Now Anthony Kiedis and Flea were left alone in the band, so they had to find new members. At first they went with DeWayne, BlackByrd, McKnight, who was a friend of George Clinton and former member of Parliament Funkadelic. Then they went with D.H. Peligro, formerly of the Dead Kennedys. So this new lineup only played 3 shows. Then McKnight was fired, and he was considered not to be a good fit for the band. He was not happy about this. He even threatened to burn down Anthony Kiedis' house. But what's interesting is that when they were together, they were together long enough to record a song called Blues for Meister, which is the first Chili Pepper song to have Flea on lead vocals, and the only song to feature D.H. Peligro as well. He will be leaving the band shortly, but not yet. By the way, the song Blues for Meister was included on the compilation album called Out in L.A. Now it was time to find a new guitar player. So in comes John Frusciante. He was a teenager at the time. So at first John Frusciante felt he was not the right fit for the band. He was never a funk player. He was determined though. He studied Hillel Slovak's guitar style, and then the band went out on a small tour. Things weren't working out with the new drummer, D.H. Peligro. Not only was he not a fit for the band, but he had some substance abuse problems. But he was in the band long enough to help write 4 of the songs from this album, Mother's Milk. But in November of 1988, he was let go from the band. According to Anthony Kiedis, it wasn't easy letting him go. He was a really good friend of the band, so it was time to find a new drummer. They had auditions and they went with Chad Smith. He was a different kind of drummer. While Anthony Kiedis, Flea, and John Frusciante were part of the punk rock scene, Chad Smith was more of a metalhead and he liked classic rock. But it didn't matter as his new lineup would remain stable for years, more or less. I won't get into that. Now it's time to record the album Mother's Milk, and the process goes smoothly. They had already written a number of songs. There was one song in particular that was recorded before Chad Smith joined the band. That was Taste the Pain. But the drummer on this track was someone you wouldn't have expected. It was Philip Fish Fisher from the band Fishbone. They were another up-and-coming funk and metal band in the late 80s. They recorded some tracks at Hully Gully Studios in Silver Lake. It was there that the band noticed that John Frusciante was bringing something special to the band, something they had never seen before. The band really clicked and they became very productive in the studio. They later went to Ocean Way Recording Studio in Hollywood. They were working with their then producer, Michael Beinhorn, and he pushed the band to create the best music that they can. This created a little bit of friction as he was somewhat of a control freak in the studio. So for example, he would argue with John Frusciante over which guitar effects to use. John Frusciante wanted more of a heavy metal guitar tone, and Michael Beinhorn pushed for more of an acid rock tone. Now let's talk about the album cover and the controversy that came with it. Now I know that I have people from all over the world watching my videos, so for those of you who do not live in the United States, let me tell you that the United States makes a very big deal about a woman showing her boobs. So I mean, if you probably heard about the Janet Jackson incident at the Super Bowl and how the country almost came to a complete stop after she showed a boob for a few seconds during the Super Bowl halftime show. So when the band released their album cover, you can see that it is a topless woman with her breasts covered by both a Rose and Anthony Kiedis. The first problem arose when the model for the album cover, Dawn Elaine, said she was never notified that she would be used for the cover. So she sued the band and won a $50,000 settlement. Then another problem arose. A lot of chain stores refused to sell the album because they said it had too much nudity, even though everything is pretty much covered up. So they made an alternate cover where the band is covering up more of the woman, but like all controversy, it basically helped sell the album. Now let's talk about the music. This was a turning point for the band. The band had the perfect lineup. They found a guitarist and drummer who fit the band well. John Frusciante was a big asset for the band. He brought in more melody, harmony, and complex song structures. And he was someone who studied music theory. The band finally had songs with melody as opposed to the rhythm and groove of their previous albums. The album had 13 tracks, but for this video, I just want to talk about 5 of the most important songs on the album, which will be Good Time Boys, Higher Ground, Knock Me Down, Taste the Pain, and Pretty Little Thing. Good Time Boys was the opening track. This was an interesting song. It included some sound samples from other bands, which were also from bands that had a connection with the band. So I mentioned the band Fishbone. This song had a sample from Fishbone's Bonin' in the Boneyard. Then there was a sample from a song called Try by the punk band Thelonious Monster, and a sample of a song called White Girl by another well-known punk band called X. The song was not released as a single, but they filmed a music video showing the band playing the song with cutaways to interview scenes, and this was included on the Hard and Heavy VHS video series. That was popular back then. I probably used to have this. I don't anymore, but I used to collect these VHS tapes. Then there's a song Higher Ground. This was a cover song originally by Stevie Wonder. The song in the music video showing the band playing in what seems to be this green screen type video. It was on the Beavis and Butthead show, so you know what that means. Here's a clip.
You could have "I'm a puss" tattooed on your butt.
And there was a song Knock Me Down. This is probably the most important song on the album because the lyrics come from a very personal place. The band was still affected by the death of Hillel Slovak, so they decided to write an anti-drug song. In the chorus, they say, "If you see me getting mighty, if you see me getting high, knock me down." This alludes to the fact that they may be feeling guilty for letting their bandmate use drugs without them saying anything about it. According to Anthony Kiedis, the song was a tribute to Hillel Slovak. This was one of the first times that the band wrote a serious song, as most of their other songs were about that rock and roll lifestyle and like that. The song also has elements of the band's punk rock roots and their new experimentation into the world of alternative rock. And here's some more trivia. They were influenced by the Rolling Stones song Miss You, so if you listen to the song Miss You, you can almost hear the chorus to Knock Me Down, and I'll play a little clip of both so you can see what I'm talking about. Then it was the aforementioned Taste the Pain. As I mentioned before, the drums were played by Philip Fish Fisher from Fishbone, This was also the first song recorded with John Frusciante. The song also includes a trumpet solo by Flea, and the song was also used in the movie Say Anything, though not that famous scene. It would have been funny if they did. I want to talk about one more song. It's called Pretty Little Ditty. It's a short instrumental. It became popular about 10 years after its release when the band Crazy Town sampled it for the hit song Butterfly. That single was big. It sold 6 million copies worldwide. It was kind of a one-hit wonder for the band Crazy Town. Then the song was resampled years later by an artist named Gail for the Barbie soundtrack in 2023. So as you can see, this was one of those short instrumentals that could have been a filler track, but it became one of the most important songs on the album. So that's all. Let me know in the comments what you think of this album. Do you think it is the album that broke the band? In the meantime, I recently did a video about Californication that was released 10 years after this one. So you can check it out. I'll stick that one right there. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.